Stop evolving. Today, I'm going to give you the secrets to going backwards. Devolve, not evolve. Go backward, not forward. Become worse, not better. Suck more, not less. Hang on as we go through the 10 ways to stop evolving.
Welcome to the Evolve Podcast. Evolve your body, evolve your mind, evolve your soul, and evolve your tribe. And now, it's time to disrupt.
And with that, folks, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Evolve Podcast. I am your host, Steve Cutler, and today I want to talk to you about how to stop evolving. What are the keys to going backwards? How do you create a life where you're not moving forward, but you are deconstructing, devolving, and creating a completely derelict life? But before we get started, I want to thank you for listening to the Evolve Podcast. The Evolve Podcast is part of our passion to provide no-cost consumer content that will help you disrupt and evolve into your highest self. As a coach, consultant, and speaker for over 2 decades, I know the power and value in having a coach and a tribe around you to create clarity, consistency, and accountability. With that in mind, I want to remind you that we offer one-on-one coaching to help you evolve in your best self. And in addition to the one-on-one coaching, our flagship product, the Evolve Coaching Mastermind, is for men and women who want the most out of their life. These are men and women who are mothers, fathers, decision makers in leadership roles, and or are entrepreneurs. Our current mastermind group has, over the past 3 weeks, lost over 33 pounds of fat. Pretty amazing results, and we are excited and want to give them a shout out for all of the hard work that they're doing and becoming more evolved men and women. For more information on our coaching, please click the link in the show notes or go to evolve-cast.com. And I look forward to chatting with you soon. And now, on to the show. Now, guys, today I want to talk the opposite of what we normally talk about. Normally, we're discussing concepts related to evolving, to becoming a better version of yourself. Not just this cycle of I get a little bit better and then I get a little bit worse. I lose 10 pounds and gain 20. We're not talking about evolution today. We're talking about devolving. We're talking about going backwards. And I want to give you 10 tips to go backwards. The first one is don't read anything after high school. Books are overrated. Peak in high school and just don't look back. Evolved people continue to learn and grow through expanding their knowledge. Don't do that. Make sure that you're really good at saying the last book I read was in high school and just stick to that. Be very proud of it. All right, number 2, make excuses for not working out. See, once you start moving, you'll get benefits for your brain and body. Don't do that. Don't move. Just sit more. Scroll more, Netflix more. Once you start moving, you stop living vicariously through other people and, media. But don't do that. Don't move. Curl up under that comfy blanket and make sure that your snacks are ready to go for hours-long marathons of mindlessness. Now, number 3, this one takes you out of your own space and gets you interacting with other people, which is always great if you do this tip. Number 3 is argue with anyone whose beliefs don't match with your current paradigm of life. You see, evolved people remain open to other people's perspectives. They learn, they ask questions, and they lean into the different opinions. Don't do that. Practice getting offended. Make sure that you become very good at making wild accusations and even more wild scenes when you are offended. Make sure that becoming and showing that you're offended when someone has an opinion that's different than yours becomes your top skill. And it's not that hard to do. So as a devolved human being, I'm sure you can do this. Number 4, do everything alone. Establish a high level of independence to the point where you never accept help. Don't accept support from anybody. Doing everything yourself, it just makes sense because it only matters if you accomplish it on your own. Evolved men and women understand that despite any personal success they achieve, they are part of a larger ecosystem. If you've achieved a significant amount of wealth, You did so because there's a banking system, because there's economic commerce, there's all of these different things that have got you there, but don't recognize that. Okay, you just need to do everything yourself. Don't think like that. Be a self-starter, a self-creator, a self-driver, and self-ish. Everything in your life needs to come back to number one, and that's you. So don't have anybody help you with anything. Just do everything alone. If somebody doesn't follow through on a commitment, go back to that old adage, if you want something done right, you just have to do it yourself, and then constantly play into the victim, which we'll talk about in just a minute. All right, so that's number 4. Number 5, it's similar to number 4, but we want to go deeper here. Never ask for help. You see, you need to become the smartest person in the room, and you need to get very good at gaslighting yourself and others. Asking for help from experts or people who have achieved what you want is for wimps. You're not a wimp. Never show your weakness. Never show what you don't know, and never ask for help. That's what evolved people do. Our goal here is to make you less than. And so play big, don't ask for help, and just do it all your own. That leads us to number 6. Play bigger than you are. Whatever arena you are in, make sure that you play bigger than what you currently are. Spend more money than you have, wear things for the express purpose of getting validation from other people, and make sure that you exaggerate your position in life constantly. Seek approval from others in every single thing that you do. Evolved men and women live with a more monk-like humility while they practice their craft daily to improve. Don't do that. Talk more than you do, and take every opportunity to show off and show how big you are, even if you're not really that big in that particular area. Number 7, we're going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum, and I want you to discount everything that you know, everything you're good at, everything that other people might consider a strength. Discount those. Be so critical on yourself that you're almost paralyzed to act. When someone compliments you, get very good at negating what they say. Drop your head, focus on the negative, tell them that they're wrong. Don't lean into anything that anyone might see as a strength. Take what you think is this idea of humility and make it a self-depreciating, constant stream of negativity. Don't live in any sort of strength. Just take this false idea of humility and become uber negative all the time. Now we're on to number 8. Never, never, never stick with an idea long enough to go into the desert. Now, what do I mean by the desert? Well, I'll explain that in just a second, but I want to tell you a story. You see, I had an opportunity to work with a group of executives one time, and there was a period of time where I observed the behaviors that they were doing, and this goes back to this concept of never stick with an idea long enough. So they would sit in an office or in a meeting room, and they would talk for hours and hours and hours. Now, what was happening? I've got this phrase that I use, and you're either one of two people in life. You're either a smart feller or you're a fart smeller. If you're a smart feller, you tend to learn from other people and you are open and you grow. If you're a fart smeller, you get in a room with other people who are like-minded. You all pass gas, and then at a certain point, you think you're amazing, and you don't realize how bad the room has become as you're all sitting in there passing gas. Now, I know that can be a vulgar image to some of you, and yet we all do it when we get around people who have the same thought processes as you do, right? So if you and I think the same, we get in the same room together, and we just continue to pat each other on the back over and over and over and over again, there's a chance we're going to turn from being smart fellers into fart smellers. But we're not going to smell the stink that is coming off of us. So back to these executives. They would sit in a room and they would come up with a great idea. And then they would come out, and instead of talking to the team about it and getting feedback, they just said, hey, we have this great idea. And they implemented it within a couple of days, maybe a week. Well, then what happened is what happens with every single thing in life. We get excited about an idea. We get excited about the new thing, and then we enter the desert. And the desert is the point where we realize that we probably have an unformed thought or a thought that's not fully formed. And so it becomes difficult. We realize that that thought is maybe not a great thought, even though we were excited about it. Or that we don't have time, energy, and resources, or maybe it doesn't match with what our goals are. And so the desert is the point where reality hits. So, true to form, what happened with these executives is they would scrap the idea, they'd create a scapegoat, and then they'd repeat that process over and over again and never allow time for any thought or any idea to get traction. Now do this, follow this same process. Make sure that you get an idea, get excited about that idea, run with the idea until you enter the desert. As soon as you enter the desert, find a scapegoat. The scapegoat is the person or the thing that you can blame the failure on, and then go through that process again. Come up with another idea. Don't focus on getting any traction whatsoever. Don't stick with it long enough. If you haven't lost the 50 pounds on this weight loss plan that you just started and you're 3 workouts in, well, just stop. Come up with another idea. Go buy a pill and try that to see if that's going to help you lose weight, right? Just jump from one thing to the next. That leads us to number 9. Always find a way to become the victim. Wherever you are in life, if you want to become a devolved human being, find a way to become the victim in that situation. Now, if you are a father who does not have a great relationship with his son or his daughter, be the victim. Blame it on the fact that they're a teenager. Blame it on the fact that they've got bad influences as friends. You are working hard. You're doing everything you can. It's their fault. It's someone else's fault. It's not your fault. Be a victim in there. If you're a business leader, you haven't held yourself accountable to delivering results, blame the market. Blame your employees. Blame a number of other reasons why you're failing. If you're in a marriage where arguments are constant, don't take accountability for it. Blame your spouse. It's their fault that there's no love and connection. It's their fault that you don't have a deep spiritual relationship. It's their fault that the emotional bond isn't there. It's their fault that you don't connect physically or sexually. It's their fault, not yours. You are great. It's the other person. It's the world, whatever you want to call it. They caused it to happen. Find a way to be a victim. And finally, number 10, live forward and backwards more than you live in the moment. Get ideas for the future. Create those ideas in your mind. Make them very vivid and live in the future, because when you do this, you get dopamine hits. You're imagining what the future looks like, and you're going to have this perfect life. Live there. Live there until it's time to go backwards and tell yourself the story of how, like Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite, you used to be able to throw a football over those mountains, and you were the greatest star player on your football team. So when you're not living forward, live backward. Go back, tell yourself the story of when you did the thing and when you were the hero and when you were the best, and live in that space. Don't live in the moment. Avoid the moment at all costs, because the moment can be painful. The moment can be embarrassing. The moment can be difficult. Just time travel constantly. Wherever you are, don't be there. Go somewhere else. All right. Now, I told you I've got 10 tips. I'm actually going to give you a bonus tip, because I think the bonus tip is probably the one that's going to help you. If you just do the bonus tip and you ignore the other 10, this will be the tip that will keep you stuck in life and exactly where you want to be. You want to be stuck and not moving forward. You want to be a devolved human being. This is the thing. You guys ready for it? All right. When things get difficult, find ways to pleasure yourself. Let me say that again. When things get difficult, find ways to pleasure yourself. When you've not followed through on your commitment, when your business is failing, when you're not losing weight, lean into pleasure. Tell yourself you deserve it. I deserve it. It's been so difficult. I deserve to eat this bag of chips. It's so difficult. I deserve this massive ice cream sundae. I'm so stressed. I deserve to pleasure myself by letting my anger out on this, on my wife or my kids, because that's going to make me feel better. The shot of adrenaline that I'm going to get will give me a sense of dominance and pleasure, right? If you're a leader in business, take that vacation to Mexico. Hide it from other people. Don't tell them where you're going. If you're the CEO and you are failing at your job, you've missed payroll, you can't get the funding that you need, go to Mexico, because it's too hard to deal with the fact that you're failing your team. You can't face that. You need to run away and lean into the pleasure. In fact, go get drunk. Eat a ton of food while you're there, laying on the beach. Do that. Lean into pleasure. Find ways to pleasure yourself in the midst of difficulty, and you will be the ultimate devolved human being. Now, why did I do this episode on how to not evolve, how to become devolved? You see, our brains are hardwired to identify threats and problems in life. It's really hard-coded into us. It's a protective mechanism. So identifying the problems and then reverse engineering the solutions can be a perfect path towards evolution. So do these 10 things. Don't read anything. Don't make excuses, make excuses for not working out. Argue with anyone whose beliefs don't match your current paradigm of life. Do everything alone. Never ask for help. Play bigger than you are. Make sure that you discount your strengths and put yourself down regularly. Make sure that you never stick with an idea long enough to get any traction. Find ways to become a victim. Live forward and backward rather than in the moment. And finally, pleasure yourself when things become difficult. Or you could make a choice today and you could lean into becoming an evolved individual. You could read, study, and learn constantly. You could move your body more than you don't. You could tip the scale of activity in your favor. You could learn to listen to opposing opinions without defensive anger. You see, often the thing that someone says that might spark us towards anger might just be the thing that you need to hear. You could build a tribe around you that will support your evolution. You could ask for help when you get stuck, or better yet, you could ask for help before you get stuck. You could play the game exactly where you're at, not bigger. You could accept that where you're at is good enough. And if you want to grow, you can only do so by accepting where you're currently at. And you can do so by work, effort, and desire. You're only going to get results if you put the work and the effort in and you develop your knowledge, skills, and ability. You could recognize what your strengths are and use them. When you lean into your strengths, you're going to be able to compound results. You could pick a path and stick with it, especially through the desert. You can get through the uncomfortable part and remember that it's going to be uncomfortable until it's not. You can focus on developing your skill. You can develop your ability. You can develop your body. You can develop your mind. And eventually, you can become good enough so that you're not in the desert anymore. Next, you could take full accountability for your life and where you are, and the fact that you are not a victim. If you think you are, here's a tip. You're probably victimizing other people. You could be accountable and move forward and take total ownership of your life. Next, you could learn to live in the moment. You could practice not having high expectations and just stay in the present moment. Work on what's right in front of you and don't worry about the future. And then finally, you could become Spartan-like. You don't need half. In fact, you probably don't even need 90% of the pleasures that are in your life right now. You could lean into the difficulty, not the pleasure. Look in the mirror. If the reflection that's staring back at you is soft and doughy, is a reflection that makes excuses, that's a reflection that's built from pleasure, not a reflection that's built from an evolved human being. Become hard, strong, ripped, disciplined. Become your best self. Whatever is reflecting back at you in the mirror is your values and your choices that you made 2 months ago, 2 years ago. Become Spartan-like. You don't need probably 90% of the pleasures in your life. Start to get rid of them, and you become a more evolved human being. Well, and on that note, folks, it is time for us to wrap up another episode of the Evolve Podcast. I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us for another episode of the Evolve Podcast. I am Steve Cutler, reminding you that it takes time and consistency to evolve, but first you have to disrupt. And now it's time for you to get out there and evolve.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Evolve Podcast. Follow us on your favorite podcast app, and if you haven't done so, please give us a rating. As an independent podcast, it really helps us get more reach. This podcast is part of our mission to help millions of people evolve into the best versions of themselves. Please check out our coaching services at evolve-cast.com or pick up some of our Evolve merch. Until next time, keep evolving.